What happened was.
Hey friends, it's so nice to see you. It's today, the time is now. You are here and the weather is outside your window.
Today's guest has just returned to Broadway where she stars as Carlotta in The Phantom of the Opera. Please welcome Raquel Suarez Groen.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? Great to see you.
Good. It's nice to see you and to finally, meet you face to face, even though
Here
it's
we are.
medium. Yes.
Console's meeting now. It's a new world. So
It's a new world. This is just as much face to face as, in person.
absolutely.
So-
We're hanging out. It's great.
I know. This is so cool. And are you in New York? Where are you?
Yeah, I'm in Harlem. Where are you?
Upper West Side,
Awesome.
New York City.
Heck
And I'm getting ready to move. So
Where are you moving?
just like 10 blocks, but I really want a dog. I want to be that soprano that has a dog. So I'm moving after 11 years of being in my apartment. And,
Wow.
it's a bit of a pain in the butt to move in New York, but we're doing it. So,
Well, I'm one of those sopranos that has a dog. So
yes. Oh,
Yeah.
what kind of dog do you have?
I have a miniature pinscher. He's
Oh my
my,
God.
my best friend, and he's the very best. And I take him.
Oh, that's what I want. See, I'm done being in my apartment by myself.
Yeah, it's gonna change your life,
Excellent.
and you'll have a forever friend.
I know.
Yeah.
Literally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Forever. Yes.
Well, it's so nice to finally meet you. Thank you for coming on. I wanted to
Oh,
talk
thanks
to
for
you
asking me.
because you're one of a very small club that is back on Broadway after the
Yeah.
shutdown. And
Yes.
so for those that don't know, you've been starring as Carlotta in Phantom of the Opera for quite a while now. How many performances?
I've done close to 1,000.
That's a lot.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a lot of the same thing. I know. In opera, that's very unusual, right?
Yeah,
And in musical
yeah.
theater, it's when you do 8 shows a week, it adds up quick.
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
I just did my first 8-show-a-week run in 10 years, and it was wild at a regional theater.
Yeah.
And it was I didn't know if I could do it anymore because I've been doing opera primarily, and it
Yeah.
was really, really fun because I've missed it, and I miss the spontaneity and the playfulness and
Yeah.
having a stage family.
I
Yeah,
know.
'cause we
It's so
try,
nice.
but there's days off between, and you have very few performances, and in a sense that system makes it so we're really focused on ourselves, and I think we forget how to connect sometimes.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. Yes. And I had to learn in the beginning. I don't know if you were the same way, but because in opera you have a few performances a week or you have so many gigs a year, I was quiet on those days and I wouldn't do anything. I'd be in bed until noon. It was a really luxurious day because I was just trying to save my voice all day. But when you do it 8 times a week, you can't do that every day or you have no life. So you just kind of have to learn every day is a performance day, and
Yeah.
whether you wake up with mucus or you have to go to a meeting or you got to go, meet somebody or go to the gym, you've got to live your life, So,
And it
yeah.
takes the pressure off in a sense because the show becomes in a way your neutral state. And
Yes.
yeah, and it's just this is my life.
Oh,
Go-
totally. I know what I'm doing here, and it does make you more of a complete artist, to
Absolutely.
not spend all day in silence,
Absolutely.
resting your voice. Yes.
So what was it like for you when things were shut down? It was probably March 13th-ish or so.
Yeah, so we were the last show on Broadway, and we were open for that matinee. And I remember coming in, and they said, we may shut down. This evening, we may not have a show because we always have 2 shows on Thursdays, but we never shut down. Even during 9/11, it shut down for 3 days. There's a giant snowstorm, we're still on, we're always on. And so I did the cadenza and I was singing and I had just been on stage for maybe 10 minutes. And they were yeah, at 5 o'clock, pack up your things. We're going to be shut down for a month, and I was a month, we never shut down. That's that's a long time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I packed up all my snacks and my plants and all this stuff that was in there. Thank God, or I would have had some mice in there or something after a while.
Yeah.
But packed up all my stuff, came home, and it was okay, so now I guess I'm just going to be home, and it was in that time where it was like really scary to be in New York. And so I was like wiping down my Lysol box with Lysol wipes and like ordering all my groceries. And, I like really stayed in my apartment for that time. But luckily during that time, I ended up meeting somebody who had invited me on something very similar to this. And she was a psychotherapist, and she was like, hey, like, we really want somebody to come on and just like bring some joy and blah, 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 blah. And I thought, ugh, I don't want to do it. However, she knows I have nothing to do. So I can't even like make up an excuse like I'm busy. So I came on and it was wonderful. And out of that, we ended up starting this whole program called Empower Voices Now, where we combine psychology and singing. And so we train young singers, and they sing with like top Broadway people and conductors and, directors. But keeping that psychological aspect to it, which I think we sometimes forget about. So it was very hard, but at the same time, a huge blessing came out of it as well, to kind of create something that like wasn't really accessible before.
Right.
So yeah.
That's
And then I went
wonderful.
home to Canada for a year and it was wonderful.
Wow, wow, wow.
Yeah.
And then you got that call to return to Broadway.
Yes. Yeah. And the thing is, like, we were all like, ooh, are we going to open? Because we saw shows shut down,
Right,
like
right.
Beetlejuice decided to not return, and Mean Girls and Frozen, like big shows that were doing really well. And so it was kind of like, we were all kind of waiting to see, all right, like, is this going to happen or not? So finally, when they announced it, it was very exciting. It was very
Yeah,
exciting and scary at the same time because you're like, how are we going to come back to this? Like, are we going to have an audience? We're so used to tourism that it was just like,
right.
are we going to have anybody in the audience? But it's been packed. It's been totally packed.
I love
Yeah.
that. I
Yeah.
have to admit, and I'm embarrassed to admit this because I've had a lot of time in New York and a lot of opportunity. I've never seen
Never
it.
been, right? Oh, that's a very common story of New Yorkers. New Yorkers, I feel like, don't really go to see Phantom, and then yet like every tourist is like Phantom. So
I'm
anyways, you'll
going.
have to come. No,
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
going.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. All right.
I love
Yes.
seeing on your Instagram that the show had the first tech rehearsal since the 80s.
Yeah, since 1988. Totally
Wow.
wild. And because Phantom is such a well-oiled machine, like even when I was put into the show, it was like 2 weeks from beginning till I made my debut. Like you just kind of get put into this machine. So I never had rehearsal time with like my other colleagues.
Right.
And so this was like so cool because we were all kind of starting, like from the beginning in a sense, and doing it together. So yeah, that tech rehearsal was actually like, it was amazing,
Oh, I'm sure. And
Yeah.
what an amazing celebration. You had a block party with Andrew Lloyd Webber,
Yes.
DJ, and it was just so exciting to see. I wanted to be there desperately when I saw
Oh,
all the media and just this wonderful party and this joyous occasion.
Oh, and people were, once you come see it, you'll know like at the beginning of the show, I hold this like severed head, it's very like
Yeah.
solemn. And usually I start and like nobody does anything, because they're just like waiting to hear the music. And there was like a standing ovation. I hadn't even sung anything yet, just with the head of like 2 minutes of people just like cheering that we were back, So it was like, that is cool, that's gonna be,
Yeah.
yeah.
And what was the
So
reaction to the chandelier? Did people go nuts?
Oh my God, people were losing it. Oh yeah, yeah. The chandelier comes over the audience, people were screaming, and I mean, it was amazing. So yeah.
And I read that you saw this show for the first time in Vegas, right?
Yes.
So like what did you have any inkling of a dream at that moment that you might do this show someday?
Yeah, well, it's funny, like I think as opera singers, we're like taught that Phantom of the Opera is like, I mean, it's not an opera, it's a musical, but we're like, ooh, Phantom of the Opera,
I think
Um,
it's
Yeah, but I mean, like, like kids are like opera people always like to make fun of it a little bit.
right.
And then, so my parents had bought tickets and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to conservatory. I'm like, way too like, frou for this. And then I went and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing,
Yeah.
And the costumes were amazing. And like the chandelier in that one, like broke up into multiple pieces and like flew through the audience. And the crazy part is that my costumes that I'm wearing now are from the Vegas production,
Wow.
like my specific costumes. So, yeah, when I saw that, I was like, okay, I don't know if I can admit this, but I like love the show.
Yeah, no,
You
you can
know?
admit that. I mean,
Yeah,
we all have that experience with patrons and prospective opera goers and the opera curious, where you say, "What's your favorite opera?" and they say Phantom of the Opera. And there's
yeah,
two choices in that moment. You can either judge them, or
yeah.
you can say, "Oh, that's so awesome.
I know.
You should come to your local opera company and see La Boheme or whatever."
Totally.
Build that
Yes.
bridge. That's our
Yeah.
responsibility. You
And
know.
I think it does allow for, like you said, a bridge. Like it
Yeah.
allows for more accessibility. You know, people feel like, oh, I've already experienced it, like, you know, in this like very
Yeah.
musical theater amplified way. But yeah, it gets people interested in classical music.
Yeah.
And it's a
And
great show. I mean, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I'm biased, but it's a great, great show.
Listen, as I said, I haven't seen it, but I know the score back and forth. Like I
Yeah.
know the show, and I
Yeah.
know for a fact it celebrates opera and lifts up the art form in a way that is very good for opera.
And
And
like you should totally be the Phantom. I'm just saying. Like you
oh, oh,
such a good Phantom.
oh,
So
I'm in.
we'll make it happen. We're gonna make it happen.
Okay.
Okay.
So I have to ask you one more thing. I noticed that you have a personal connection with Wuhan. You've sung there in Wuhan,
Yeah.
China. So what was that like when we were here and it felt like something that was happening very far away from us, yet you have this personal connection and know what it's like to be there? Were you, I don't know, what was your feeling about that in that moment?
I mean, a little bit surreal, I guess, in a sense, because like, you know, nobody really thinks like I'm gonna go to Wuhan, China. You know, like it wasn't, but because we had performances there, I
Right.
was in that city. And it's interesting because I think the way sometimes we think about like China or, you know, we're like, oh, well, you know, not as developed or blah. No, like they are so far ahead when it comes to
Yeah.
like technology and buildings. Like this is like a highly developed, beautiful, like the, you know, area. And, you know, all we're hearing is like, you know, guy made bat soup from like
Yeah.
some market there. And I'm like, but that is so not how that city is. You know, it's like a beautiful city. It's very much like almost like a Shanghai. And, yeah, it was like wild to think like, oh my God, I was there a year ago, you know, and
Exactly.
now all this stuff is coming out. But I always just felt like, I mean, I love China. I like wanted to live there at one point because I was like, this is amazing. The culture, you know, the traditions, the food, like everything, you know, like it's just, yeah, it felt surreal. And I think sometimes the media also just portrays like China in a very different way. I'm like, oh my God, if you're there, like it's so modern, it's so advanced. It's like they're like way ahead of us. So, you know, and it's like, listen, I think, you know, this was bound to happen. You know, this virus was bound to happen at some point. You know, there was going to be something
For
like
100
this.
years or
And,
so, right? I mean,
you know,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Um, and unfortunately, like, I mean, yeah, I mean, what the saddest part is just all the lives that have been lost, you know, during this
Absolutely.
time. And that's why I feel like none of us can complain that we were like stuck in our homes. I'm like, hello, you know, like you are alive, you are healthy, you're here, and you know, thinking about people who went to the war, like that was bad,
Yeah.
you know. So although we all had our own struggles with it, and I don't deny that in any way or you know minimalize that, it's like we still have so much to be grateful for,
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know? Yeah.
And something to be so incredibly grateful for now after such loss of work is
Yeah.
returning to the
Oh,
stage. And yeah, it's so great to see. And yeah, I hope we can just safely move forward and keep on keeping on and
yeah.
sharing live experiences together. It's so incredible.
And you were like almost like forget when you're doing it. Like I don't know if you felt this way, but like it becomes such a normal part of your life
Yeah.
that you forget like, you know, what an impact it has on people,
Oh yeah.
you know, and on yourself, you know, like you really just you almost take it like for granted and then gets taken away from you and you're like, wow,
Wow.
you know, how lucky that we can do this as a
Yeah.
profession.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I felt exactly the same way I was feeling when things hit and everything was shut down. I was kind of feeling burnt out because I was doing a different show, a different city every month. And
Yeah.
then I was like, wow, well, this is really bad, but maybe a little time off is all right. And
Yeah.
that it was,
A year and a half. I know.
Yeah. And I definitely went through that thing of like, oh, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. Maybe I should find like a real job.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
and then I think returned in a way that my passion is reignited. And I think that's a really cool thing.
I feel the same way. Like, I also, from doing 8 shows a week, I was burned out. I was tired, I was like, oh my God.
How it is. Yeah.
It is how it is. And it's like, there's nothing
Still
wrong
doing
with that.
your
That's
best.
being
Yeah.
human. Yeah. And like, you're putting your best out every day, and like, you have to be on all the time. And, and I was teaching and I was doing that, and I was home, and I was like, maybe this is like, what I want. And, and then coming back, I was like, it's been more fun than ever, to be honest. Like, I'm really enjoying it, rather than like, I have to be perfect every day, blah, blah, blah. Like there's so much less of that, because I'm like, it's not about that.
No.
It's not like sharing a story and being together, and just like, people just want to be entertained, and it's really nice to be able to have, I like you, I feel like reignited.
Absolutely. And lifting that pressure off of ourselves is so important, especially coming from the opera field where everything has to be perfect. And, a great country singer said to me, honey, we're in the business of entertainment. This is supposed to be fun.
Totally.
I was like,
I know, we forget, sometimes we totally forget, and I think too, especially as classical singers, we're so used to always having to be,
right.
It's like, there's a certain level of, the level that you need to stay at. And so you're constantly kind of, for me anyways, I was constantly kind of in this judgy place of like, you have to do this, you have to be good. Oh, if this high note wasn't great, like I could have the whole evening would be crappy. And now I'm like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like we just went through a world pandemic. If that high E didn't come out the way I want, like life goes on.
It does.
Like and nobody else knows except for you. So just like,
Right, but you're trained at Manhattan School of Music. You're like a trained opera singer. You're trained to have that mindset.
Totally,
and
yes.
We're really hard on ourselves, so it's wonderful to hear, and I can't wait to see you in the show.
Yay! I can't wait for you to see it.
Well, can I ask you some silly questions?
Yes, please.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Zodiac sign.
Leo.
Favorite ice cream flavor.
Okay, so I love 16 handles, and I always do the Euro tart with like wet nuts.
Heck yeah.
They're like these like caramel nuts. Oh my God, they're so good.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
Okay. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Yeah. Beach or mountain?
Yeah, I just got an espresso, and like now it's coffee.
Oh, you're in the long haul. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Beach or mountain?
Beach.
Dream vacation spot.
I really want to go to Greece. I've always wanted to go to Greece. Yeah. Santorini. Yeah.
You can spend a weekend away with any 3 people who have ever lived.
Oh. Wow, that's such a hard one. That I've ever lived. Like famous, or can they like be anyone?
Anybody. Yeah.
Oh. This sounds like so cheesy, but it would totally be like my parents. And who else would it be? It's like very difficult. I would go with my parents, and I would take my new dog. That's gonna be in my life.
That. Dogs are the best.
When you're never home, like I'm home like once a year. I'm like, if I can be with people I want to be with, it's my family. Because like they're in Canada, they're so far away. Yeah.
What was the first opera you ever saw?
Madame Butterfly.
Wow.
It was a hefty one. Yeah.
Wow. Were you?
My dad fell asleep.
Oh yeah.
He was like
loud. Yeah. What's your favorite opera?
Traviata.
Yeah. And that's a dream role of yours as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, here's a tough one. You can go back in time to any moment in your life and tell your younger self in that moment one thing.
I would go back to my time when I was in grad school at Manhattan School of Music and just say, girl, it's all gonna work out. It's all gonna work out.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I was so worried, getting into that opera theater. And now I'm like, it doesn't matter, like what's meant for you is meant for you. So yes.
Yep, absolutely. And finally, a big one. What is the meaning of life?
For me, the meaning of life is to love and to connect with people. And I think that's what like the pandemic has showed really, you know, I used to be so just almost obsessive about my work and being like perfect that I feel like I missed out on just like life, you know, like it was like, that's not as important as your family, your friends, having love in your life, being connected. So for me, it's that. And also like helping each other through life. Like we all go through crap. We all feel all the feels, you know, and it's like, we're all human. Nobody's perfect. And it's like, let's all just do this thing together.
And that's love. Yeah.
And that is love. Yeah.
And connect. Yeah.
And connecting.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for coming on. I've loved connecting with you today.
Thank you. I've loved connecting with you too. It's been so fun to talk. I feel like I could talk to you for like hours. So, you know, we have like a really long show.
Well, thank you so much and have a wonderful show tonight.
Thank you so much.
That's all for today's episode. Puppies and rainbows till we meet again.